my God, it's the BC3 Amigos. We're back in town. I cannot believe it. We took at the summers hit us hard. I mean, it's so hot where we all live here in the Northeast and Texas. And obviously, it's a little wet in some of our states for some of our friends, but we're back here together, traveling a lot and doing a lot of work, a lot of go lives, a lot of projects going on. But we sat here and we thought to ourselves about a week and a half ago, you know, we need to ask one of our industry experts, what's going on out in really the outside world where, obviously an industry leader can really give us some insight and talk about things that we want to talk about, like, Copilot, AI, and some of the, things that are going on. So we thought, let's reach out to one of our friends we've known for many years now, John Siefert. John, welcome to the BC3 Amigos podcast.
Thank you so much, Steve, Rob, and Kim. Golly, it's always such a pleasure to get to spend some time with the BC3 Amigos and getting a little time to chew the fat with my friends, Kim, Rob, and Steve. So thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. I mean, it's nice getting some insight into kind of where you sit, because obviously we're in the trenches with our customers, with our other partners that we help out, and so we're kind of in knee deep in things. But it's getting a little insight from you, kind of taking a twist on everything that we talk about with our subscribers and everybody who listens to us. We thought it'd be a nice change of pace. We bring in, obviously we bring partners to talk about their apps. We bring in Microsoft people to talk about what's going on at Microsoft, and then we talk about the product in general. But coming from your perspective, obviously it's going to be a little different. So we definitely appreciate it. So I think let's hit the ground running. John, why don't you tell our our listeners who you are, what you do, where you come from, and stuff like that, and then we'll kind of go round robin and ask a couple of questions of you.
Well, thanks, Steve and gang. So my name is John. Like I said, I'm the CEO of Dynamic Communities and Cloud Wars. Took this job over in Q4 of 2020. So I was one of those morons that took over a job in the middle of a global pandemic. But golly, fast forward 5 years later, and boy, it's been an amazing 5 years of transformation for Dynamic Communities, sort of stabilization and scale of everything with Community Summit North America, our large event that takes place in the fall. And then a couple of neat things that we have introduced here over the last couple of years, like the AI Agent and Copilot Summit that ran in San Diego here earlier this year in March, and what's coming up here in the July timeframe with the BizApps Partner Executive Summit, which takes place in Bellevue, and that's a 24-hour immersion into the new fiscal year from Microsoft for partners. So lots of exciting stuff and neat stuff going on.
So, John, somebody just asked me if I was going to BizWorks. What is that? I've not heard of that.
So it's the BizApps Partner Executive Summit, and it takes place at the Bellevue Hilton from July 23rd to 24th. And this is an entire program that I personally co-created with folks over at Microsoft. We did the first one last year, and we call it a 24-hour immersion into the new fiscal year. So I think most folks realize, hey, Microsoft fiscal year starts every July. Well, this year, lots of changes, lots of interesting things going on, really kind of AI-driven shifts, right, that Microsoft is bringing to market, so much of which impacts the partner ecosystem. So this event, again, going into its second year, is really focused on how AI is redefining the Microsoft partner opportunity. So we've got about 300, 400 partners that are going to be a part of the program there at the Bellevue Hilton, again, July 23 to 24. About 30, 40 folks from Microsoft that are going to be a part of the program, including, on the 23rd, our kickoff keynote is Satish Thomas, Corporate Vice President of Business and Industry applications there in the BizApps category for Microsoft, Cecilia Flombaum, Steve Thomas, Lori Borg, and Boz Breckelmans, who's the CTO of Copilot Studio, Mary Madrigal, and a number of others from Microsoft, really playing a key role here to help partners understand, golly, what are those big priorities? What do the shifts mean that Microsoft is bringing to market? And how do we, as partners, use all of those things to scale our practices by dazzling customers? So that's what's going to be going on there, Rob. Thanks for asking about it. We are just about, as of our recording today, we're about a week before the event. But we are we're just about sold out of seats for this one. So it's turned out to be a pretty popular program for folks.
And this is the second one.
Yeah, we launched it last year, same time frame, right, as a 24-hour immersion into the new fiscal year. So we launched it last year in July. That one was a pretty big hit. We probably got about 100 more folks, 120 more folks this year than were at last year's event. And just a wider broth of speakers from Microsoft who are part of it this year as well. So nice momentum going with this thing. And the neatest part of it is, we called it. It was funny because last year we just called it the BizApps Partner Summit, right? And what we found was that like 80% of the people that were attending the event were practice leaders or CEOs or other C-level titles at the company. So the partner advisory board that we work with across Dynamic Community said, "Golly, this thing should be called an Executive Partner Summit." So we shifted the name to BizApps Partner Executive Summit. And it really kind of just reflects the type of attendees that are there, and it's really kind of neat because it's managed partners, like the really large partners that are out there. It's unmanaged partners that are attending the event, as well as ISVs that are attending the event. So about 55% or so systems integrators, consultants, and about 45% are ISVs or developers coming up with cool IP for their companies.
That's cool. I mean, wow.
Cool.
I mean, I wish Rob and I could attend, but we're busy. We have a go live next week, so and Kim's also got to go live next week.
Me too.
2 go lives in the same week. That is Kim 101 right there.
Say, yeah. That's cool.
I'm just following after Steve. He's the one who's got 3 or 4 going.
That's called BC3 Migo Love. We call it.
Sharing our summer with the people we love the most.
So, John, let me ask you a question. I mean, it's been probably the hottest topic on everybody's lips for a couple of years now, and obviously the word AI comes to mind, obviously. So with AI becoming more integrated in the business tools and Business Central, which is what the three of us work with, day in and day out, and kind of how it's going to play out, how do you see it changing the way, either executives are making decisions day to day or, just thinking about the future in general?
Yeah, it's a great question. Boy, is it one that's on kind of everybody's mind, right? Is hey, what's all this stuff mean? How's it going to work? And all that sort of thing. I think I always kind of think about 3 primary things as it relates to AI. And that is, I think it's really interesting to watch the evolution of it within the Business Central world. Steve, to your point of where, a ton of us live here. But I think it comes down to opportunities, impact, and outcomes, right? So I think about, the first thing to sort of consider or that I really encourage folks and try to help folks with is, first, before you even think about what the tech is and what it can do and what it can streamline and what it can automate, really think about what are the opportunities that are specific to your business that you want to try to take advantage of. So instead of saying, boy, the whiz-bang tech or tool or co-pilot or agent can do these amazing things, think about what the opportunities are in your business to actually apply those things. Hey, could it change the way this happens, change the way that happens, redefine or reimagine how this happens? So I think always just sort of starting with what are those opportunities that are specific to your individual business. Second thing is when you start to consider, the adoption of these different things, like say maybe you're creating your own agent in Copilot Studio, right? Or you're doing it in an even more ambitious environment of Azure AI Foundry and that kind of thing. To say, okay, boy, I'm going to go try to expose this opportunity, but then really put a framework around it on what the impact is going to be for the business. So is it going to impact a process? Is it going to impact a workflow? Is it going to impact, how users are working, right? Or how AP is being managed, or how reconciliation is happening, or any of those types of things. Really think about, hey, what is that impact? And does it free up time? Does it free up money? Does it free up resource, right? What does that actually mean? And really kind of quantify that within the context of your business and your people and your process. And then the final thing where I think it becomes super important is, boy, if you understand, hey, these are the opportunities I want to go after, and then you really contextualize it around the impact, then really think about the outcomes. Like, what are those outcomes going to be? Monetary outcomes, time outcomes, resource outcomes, how you're working with partners, how you're working with customers, all that sort of thing. So I kind of created a little bit of a framework to help folks think about this. Again, starting with the opportunities, analyzing the impact, and then starting to quantify the outcomes as it relates to your business.
So, John, stepping on that for a moment, have you applied or are you looking at any opportunities with some of the planning you do for your events?
Yeah, so we are utilizing. So we actually created our first agent at our organization about a year and a half ago, Rob. And that first agent our first agents are on the Dynamics community site and on the CloudWars site, where we actually created a agent that could access all of the data specifically aligned with our URLs on Dynamics communities and on cloudwars.com. So all of the content, all of the stuff from people like you three beautiful BC amigos that are UG experts, all of that content on Dynamics communities, for example, has now been built into an agent to where you can go in and ask the agent questions, much of which would be pulling data and intelligence from all of the incredible content and programming that you all have created within the context of that site, right? So we started that about a year and a half ago. That continues to get a lot of energy and a lot of engagement, right, on Dynamics communities, because I think that starts to become a little bit of kind of the future of message boards, right? Or the future of kind of engagement of question and answer environments, right? And that kind of thing, because it can, sort of capture all of the intelligence, and then just make it easier to get those answers. Because we all know when you're on a message board, the thing you want is an answer, right? Like when you're working on something. So that's been a neat way to apply it. Did the same thing on the CloudWars site, which the CloudWars site is kind of our sister company, right, relative to what we do with Dynamic Communities. But that does news and analysis on the top 10 companies that are in the cloud. Microsoft's number one, right, on the CloudWars top 10. And in that environment, it's really helping folks through, so there's about 12,000, I think, pieces of data or articles and analysis and videos on that site that have all been built into an agent as well. And you can go in and actually ask that agent questions, and all of the answers actually come from people who are CEOs, CIOs, CISOs, and Bob Evans, who's the CloudWars founder, me, and some of the stuff that I've done up there and that type of thing. But all of those answers are, less about how to do something and a little bit more about, boy, what are some of the decisions I need to make if I'm going to try something big, right? Like a big AI, move for my company, or a big cloud move for my company, or some of those sorts of things. So anyway, that's how we started the process, Rob. Now what we're starting to do is utilize AI in a couple of different formats or functions as it relates to the events as well. So we're working with an organization, and I can't say their name yet because this isn't live, but we're working with an organization to where we're actually going to have an agent specific to Community Summit North America, where you can go in based on prompts that you would give the agent. You can actually start to customize and optimize an agenda based on your specific needs, aligned with the filters that are built into the agenda builders on the Community Summit, summitna.com site for Community Summit. So, for example, if you are considering Dynamics 365 Business Central, and your role is in finance, and you are in the manufacturing industry or what have you, and you've got folks coming from IT, from finance, and from operations from your team, this agent, much like the filters that are on the website, will actually optimize a schedule for you with recommended sessions, because it can be pretty daunting, right? With 600 plus sessions at Community Summit North America can be daunting. So between the filters to be able to utilize on the site and this new agent that we're creating, golly, it can make it a little bit more seamless and easy for folks to get the most out of their experience at Summit by just having all that stuff optimized and letting some of the tools do the work for you.
That's pretty amazing. I love that.
That's neat.
Thank you.
I was talking to a partner at Directions this year, and they have used AI to take the project plans that they've had for implementing BC for years and charged AI with creating the optimal project plan, and then they're extrapolating that out into their scope of works, their proposals. I was kind of dumbfounded. It's like, wow, if you think about that, that it makes it the boilerplate that we've all wanted for so long and never had time to put together,
I love
right? As- yeah, I was pretty impressed, and they've been using that for a couple of years now, which was more impressive.
It's so true, Kim. And what's interesting, like I was just having a conversation with some of the gang over at Microsoft on some of this stuff. One of the folks on the GTM side, the go-to-market side, Lori Borg, I just did a session with her yesterday, and we were talking about how we're kind of just it's sort of the time right now where we're only sort of limited by our imaginations, right, in what we can actually do within the context of these new sort of playgrounds that we get to be on, with respect to how we're creating agents and how you lever something like Copilot as your UX, right, and your UI and that kind of thing. But what's amazing to me is it takes, and I think you're kind of leaning into this, Kim, it takes almost a different mindset, right? It almost takes a different mindset for all of us as partners, as executives in businesses, and people using the technology and the systems and all that. We now get to kind of sort of step up a little bit, I think, beyond kind of the bell whistle feature kind of thing, and into the, okay, boy, if I could apply this or this, golly, my job could get a whole bunch easier, right? No matter what my job is. And that's kind of an exciting thing, right? It's just sort of a fun thing to start to consider and build and use to run our businesses, run our jobs, work with our teams, all that kind of thing.
So taking that what you just said, and let's take it a step further. We are we face our customers. We sit across the table, as one would say. Everybody's watching TV. AI this, AI that. The president was just talking about AI out in Pittsburgh, I believe, the other day. And here we are, and we think about AI, and then you think about all the people in all the companies, whether they're a mom and pop company where people have been there for 30, 40, umpteen decades, and you've got companies that are growing in all sizes, all shapes and sizes. But you say this great word AI, and wow, what it can do for you, just like you said it, John, exactly like you said it. Now, what, how do you feel? Where do you see it really going, knowing that the basically people who have to accept it, or basically people who have to maybe possibly speed up their digital transformation, or possibly join the party of AI? You really see
Yeah.
it? Do you really see it happening in the next 1 to 2 years, more 5 to say 8 years, 5 to 10 years? Because I mean, I'm sure it scares the bejeebies out of a lot of users. Like, somebody's going to take my job. I'm going to lose my job. And I get it. I mean, I feel the same way if I was in their shoes anyway. And we don't really have a good answer for them right now, other than it's coming. It's in Business Central. It's there. But where do you see, where do you see kind of like that leadership, that executive leadership, kind of like, and what you're seeing in the playing fields, where do you really see it finally getting the um, people accepting it, and really, how long is it really going to take? I mean, I guess is my question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a magic ball to say, okay, it's going to be 6 months and 9 days and 27 hours, right? Of when it's going to happen, and none of us do. Golly, it'd be nice if we did, right, Steve? Because then we could probably make a whole bunch of money. But the thing I think is, well, and just being a student of this stuff for so long, I guess, is how I'll think about this. But there were things that I thought were going to take a whole lot longer to get accepted and adopted and used in this, business technology world, than they did. Right? Some things went faster. Other things I thought we were going to go faster ended up going massively slower. Right? With how they were adopted and how they were used. I think the difference with AI, especially as we started to get into agentic AI and agentic architectures that can drive business process and workflow and those sorts of things. Once you actually see these things put to work, especially if there is a proper data foundation below them, like a cloud data foundation below them, and the agents are actually being built to run processes and workflows and that sort of thing within the context of a business. And then you've got a UI UX that all of us as executives, users, whatever it is, are engaging with. In our Microsoft parlance, that's a co-pilot, right? But once you start to look at this sort of new UI UX sitting atop the agents that are now being orchestrated and architected to work together to achieve these processes and workflows, and then a data foundation that's kind of built the right way, right? Like a fabric sort of architecture built around your data systems. What seems the most intriguing to me about this is once you can visualize that premise, the hard lines and silos that traditionally sat around business applications that run your organization seem to fade a little bit, right? They seem to lose their hardcore lines that differentiate each thing because the processes and workflows are now sort of more aligned with what the business is trying to do as opposed to what the app is trying to do. And that to me, once you start to visualize and consider that sort of thing, then you say, okay, is that real, right? Can that really happen? And then you say, oh, crud, how good is my data, right? Can I make sure my data actually can do this sort of stuff? The short answer to that one is most companies' data is not set up that way right now, right? So there's a lot of work to do on that side. But then you start to fast forward and think about how much easier work has the potential to come for people who are using these systems if they have a consistent user interface and user experience that they're working within. If they can actually optimize and orchestrate some of those agents to get some of those workflows done, and then how that UI and agentic architecture then starts to create data that goes into the cloud data platform as opposed to just accessing data from that cloud data platform, right? So those are the things that I think get really, really interesting. Now, are there companies already doing that? Some are definitely piloting those ideas, and I've worked with a few that are doing some pretty ambitious things around this category. But I just worked with an organization recently. It's like I kind of asking a question: where do I start? How do I get started? What happens here? What happens there? And I was working with them the same way I tried to do it at our company, and I've tried to do it in a few times that I've been a CEO and that kind of thing. But I always think about three concentric circles when I start to put this stuff together. So on the outside of my circle is my standard operating process. This is how work gets done today, right? And that kind of thing. And then the next little circle inside is where I am sort of doing these kind of pilot projects within a business unit of the company. Hey, let's try it in this part of the company or that part of the company for something new. And in the very center, I've always called tomorrow, right? And tomorrow is kind of, hey, what are the things that we could be experimenting on, thinking about, considering for where the business goes into the future? So if you think about those concentric circles, what I always try to do is say, okay, what is the tomorrow idea, right? Is it an agentic architecture that runs processes and that sort of thing? Then I go out to the next circle and say, okay, which business unit could I actually try to deploy this in and adopt this in without causing major friction and problems to the business? What I've always done is built kind of a demilitarized zone around that so that I could kind of have it to test and utilize and that kind of thing to see if it works. And then if it sucks, right, we kill it, right? And if it actually starts to work, we say, okay, let's think about some levels of adoption. And then the goal is to go from future or tomorrow to applying it within the business unit to then making it standard operating process for the business over time. But that all depends on how ambitious the project is, right? And how ambitious the organization is in wanting to apply these things to maybe reimagine expectations in their industry or for their customers or that kind of thing.
That's it's To me it's so amazing. I mean, I love where Microsoft is going with their agents and stuff that they're trying to apply to Business Central. I'm using that as the only example, and I definitely see some huge mountains. It's gonna like shrink mountains down to like little tiny, hills. I'll call it a baby hill or a speed bump. Let's call it on his roadway, because there are things that obviously are painful to do. And I like your analogy. Whereas tomorrow I want to solve X problem, where can I apply it to this thing? And then let's get the SOPs updated, which is kind of, I think, the approach Microsoft is taking. They're analyzing a certain area and they're kind of doing that tomorrow backwards approach.
Mhm.
Um, and but like I said, I mean, I think it's going to be amazing to see how it's applied and who's going to jump on in there to apply it, industry wide, who's going to accept it, who's going to basically speed up that, transformation process in their company to say, I'm going to do 100% AI, that kind of thing. And I think it's going to be amazing to watch over the next 5 to 10 years how everything potentially will be transformed with AI between Copilot and the agents and everything, and how it's going to really impact the human being behind the job. How it's going to affect them. There are certain areas I think
Yeah.
will. I just think there are certain places that can't have AI. That's my opinion. There are just some things that are not AI capable of being applied to. But then there are a lot of other areas that certainly can be applied to it. So it's fascinating hearing how you're saying it and how you're basically addressing it with people, like you said, companies you've met and stuff like that, and how you're thinking about it, how they're thinking about it, and who really, like you said, there's only a few players now playing in the, let's say, playing in this pond right now, but it's not taken off like full. Everybody's like not on the party boat yet.
So, John, I've got a question for you. With all the people you're working with now on AI and everything, the worker bees are concerned about losing jobs. But the thing that I am concerned about with AI is it speeds up the delivery of information. And at some point, will there be so much information that there will be an explosion of hiring for people who can actually process things? Meaning, like, for instance, an agent, let's go back to BC for a minute. We have these sales agents out there that will help process up to a point, but you got to have some human interaction out there. Is there a concern that we might not have enough people skilled enough to work with these agents, and that we needed to start developing that type of training?
I think it's a very important and critical time to think about that stuff, right? And that's sort of what I meant by mindset, Rob, right? Like we have to kind of evolve our mindsets to think about what resources, what skills, what kind of critical human things need to be a part of this equation in order to scale business, dazzle customers, right? Run operations, run a warehouse, do any of those different things for business. I will tell you, I always I try to take a step back and a step up on things like, hey, are humans going to be relevant in this AI world, right? And the sky is falling sort of stuff that newspaper, they're not newspapers anymore, right? Websites and wannabe thought leaders and all this kind of stuff talk about the in my mind, it becomes paramount for all of us to reimagine the value of being human in an AI centric world, right? Because it's obvious we're moving towards an AI centric world. So, what is the value inherent to being human that we can add into that environment? So, your sales agent example is a good example. Okay, in that environment, what is the value that I can add into this as a human to help drive deal closes, right? Or X or Y or Z within the context of that environment. I think the bigger issue is making sure we all don't become really, really stupid, right? Because when we have answers at our fingertips to all kinds of different stuff. We saw it with Google initially, right, where we thought we were really smart because we had access to social intelligence by searching something, and then you had some, you know, wannabe smarty pants, right, saying, "Oh, I've got that answer because I just Googled it." Well, that's social intelligence, man, right? That's not your intelligence, so don't take credit for it just because you know how to type it in. Now that gets accelerated even further when we're in an AI environment, especially as we are using natural language as opposed to code, right? To actually code something and then get answers to those things and get those things built. So we have to be careful. The further and further and further and further and further we get away from the critical thought that needs to go into doing something, the stupider and stupider and stupider and stupider we have the potential to become, right? So it becomes really important that we're continuing to think about what we do to not get stupid within this environment where we have all kinds of answers to questions, and how we complement the answers to those questions with our own critical thought and approach to solving business problems, solving geopolitical problems, right? Or any other issues that are going on out there. It's just my humble opinion, right? But that's the way I look at it.
What I've tried to tell users that I talk to when they're worried about their job is like, you know, we're so heads down in really working for the computer, right? Getting stuff in, processing things, that some of the things we should be doing go by the wayside. Like, I'm not following up on collections. I'm not double checking that got old sales orders. There's a huge long list of those things because we just can't get to them. What I feel like some of the agents will do will take some of that busyness away from my fingers, where now I am using my brain more to look for this or look for that, look for problems, look for what I can be solving. And I think some of the agents actually help say, hey, take a look at this. And so I don't even now, I need to think about how to solve those, but I don't have to go search to find the things I need to be solving. But I I think there'll always be a need for the solver, right? Uh, that I don't think the agents and AI will always be able to solve things because there are people involved, I guess. And until we have the robot that goes out and puts everything on the truck, uh,
It's coming.
I hope that. I hope there's still need for some humans somewhere along the way.
But I think Kim, you raised such an important point there, and I think it's what we are solving needs to evolve, right? Like
Yes.
we used to solve these things. Now those things can be solved by an agent or what have you. So now, what are the bigger things that we should be solving, or what are the next things that we should be solving? And that's that point
Mhm.
of critical thinking, right? What
Yeah.
terrifies me is, like I asked a question. I was doing a roundtable with some people the other day, and I asked the question of how many people know how to fish. Right? You had a whole bunch of people raise their hand. I know how to fish. I know how to fish. I said, okay, how many of you know how to clean the fish? Less hands went up, right? And then I said, okay, how many of you know how to fillet and cook the fish on an open fire? And then less hands were up, right? For people that could do all of those things. Well, just like it became so much easier for us to go to hotshot, superstar restaurant to
Mhm.
have the 17-star meal that is an amazing fish that somebody caught and cooked for you. Well, that is a convenience, right? That we've all gotten very, very used to. But that means that a whole bunch of us don't know how to fish, don't know how to clean the fish, don't know how to fillet the fish, and then you saute the fish in order to have it taste this amazing way that you get there. Same thing is true in business, right? We just need to continue defining what we're solving so that we don't become irrelevant within the
Mhm.
context of the roles we play in our company or the roles we play in the world. To Rob's point, the robots are coming, right? We've heard this stuff for years, and golly, I loved the Jetsons when I was a kid, and all those sorts of things. But the reality is, if you walk into a manufacturing facility today, the level of robotics that are going on in like the food category or the engine creation category, like in the automotive industry and those sorts of things. It's bananas how many robotics are actually doing these
Mhm.
things, all driven by AI based machines that have been programmed with AI and early stage AI and ML stuff that were based on humans giving their knowledge to the machine to get that work done through robots. right? So we have to just be kind of mindful of, hey, we can say, oh golly, it's going to take a while till it gets here, until you go in and you look in one of those spots and you're like, oops, you
It's
know,
here.
who's canning my beans again that I'm buying at the grocery store? Golly, that's a robot. Okay, what does this look like? I mean, the other the other thing that's amazing, I just worked with an organization in the agriculture category, um, and they're doing a whole sort of digital modernization, and AI is going to be built into some of the stuff that they're doing and all that. And they're doing vertical farming. Have you guys heard about this premise of vertical farming? Right, where you can actually, literally like a stack you would have in a data center, but that stack on a rack, right, is actually tomatoes, for example, right, or what have you. And they are now optimizing the irrigation systems on these racks of tomatoes, to where you literally do not waste an ounce of water. Right, you don't waste any water because of the way this thing is being optimized, and then hydroponics are being used and those sorts of things to grow these vegetables and all this kind of stuff. So it's funny because I'm talking to these folks and they go, well, at least we know the farmers aren't going to be displaced. And I said, well, have you heard of vertical farming? Right. And we started going through this stuff. And it's true, because if we take our eye off the ball, right, of all of these things that we were really used to solving as humans, to Kim's point, if we take our eye off the ball and somebody else comes in and solves that stuff with an agentic architecture and a brand new way of watering, vegetables, all of a sudden those farmers who have been the backbone of our country here in the United States for so many years, they start to become more and more irrelevant as these things take over. So they need to start solving the next thing, right, that they would be solving as farmers. Again, I don't mean to sound too soapboxy about it, but golly, these are the things that are happening kind of in real time in front of our eyes, that if we don't pay attention to, we could, two things could happen, right? We become stupider, and we could potentially become irrelevant. And nobody wants to be irrelevant from a work perspective, right? We want to have a level of relevance for what our minds can actually accomplish.
It's pretty funny that you brought up that the agricultural stacking thing, because the three of us, we're going a couple of years backwards in time here, but we had a customer that was in that industry. They stacked their uh, their vegetables, literally, lettuce, tomatoes. They had a few of them, not a lot, just a few, and they tried to bring that technology over from Europe, which is where it all started. And you're right, it is happening. It says it's just quietly happening behind the scenes, and you're right, it's going to happen. The robots will we're going to advance more and more, and people will think of ways to improve, production, and getting costs down lower by using robots. But it's a fascinating thing. Kim, you were saying something.
Well, the one that I saw, and I think it's probably on LinkedIn, but they were growing um, grass vertically, right? Um, and so what they would
A
do,
medical kind?
no, cow eating kind. And so when it came time to feed cows, they just roll up, or get however much they need, and they go take out fresh green grass to the cows, and then they kind of clean off the tray, and they, pour seeds back on there, and in 4 days they have a new batch. So if
Wow.
you have enough, racks where, every 4 days you're turning things over, no planting the ground, no harvesting and baling hay, no tractors needed for any of that, and fresh green grass for cows to eat when it's, snowing outside. Um, I was like, oh my gosh,
Right,
that
Kim?
that's amazing. Now there wasn't a lot of robotics to that, but the ideas and the things that people, I think, can use AI to get. Well, I don't have enough land to grow all the hay I need for my cattle, and the more information you get out of there, the more ideas AI can say, well, try this, or, you know, the, some agriculture is growing vertically, and
Yep.
you start to get ideas for more things that you can do.
I think it's such a great example, Kim, and I think there's two things that you mentioned there that I think we as humans, these are new things we have to solve for, right? To your point, but we as humans need to think about this stuff because all of a sudden the people who are making the tractor, the manufacturing the tractors, the people who know how to put the tractors together, the people who sell the tractors, the people who drive the tractors, right? All of a sudden, a lot of those people could be displaced, right, in this environment if you don't need the tractors. Same thing is true with the ecosystem that was built around the farmlands, right? So the worms and the this and the that, all of the
Mhm.
natural bio ecosystem that lives around these farmlands, those things have at least my fear is they have the ability to be impacted negatively. Okay, what does that mean to
Sure.
the broader ecosystem that we live in, right? And that kind of stuff. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that are going to be super important for us to not just get so excited about what it can do, right? But also understand what it will impact with respect to everything else that
Very
we
true.
do. That's the reason why I'll go back to what I was saying before, and I don't mean this to sound soapboxy, but it's so important for us to think opportunities, impact, and outcomes. Any one of these
Outcome.
different things, right? Because if we get so excited about the opportunity, but we don't think about the impact or the outcomes of what it achieves, we might have a super wonderful short-term gain and then a long-term pain, right? For how we do it. So we've got to continuously think about, okay,
Fair.
if the impact is going to be this, is the opportunity worth the impact, right? And then what are those outcomes going to be as we go forward?
Really good point.
I mean, this is I love yeah, I love talking about AI because I love getting different people's perspective on it as we grow with it because we're going to continuously grow with it over the umpteen years, and I think it's our future. But let's take a little twist here and jump off AI for just a second here. And while I know we're getting closer to the top of the hour here, but let for the three of us always love. You know how involved we are with our community. We love BC and intimately, and we go crazy. We speak and we do a lot of things, and we love teaching, and we love teaching people things and giving them more exposure to the software and making them learn better. Um, where do you see? I mean, just stepping back into dynamics communities, and looking at it, down the road, in October, of course, we have Summit, North America coming, and I'm hoping for over 6,000 attendees. I think it's all three of our hopes that we could see that number grow. But as you see our community and how we're, post-COVID community, I call it, because we were very different pre-COVID, and everything was very different pre-COVID. Where do you really see how the summit, which is really the larger of the two conferences that happen in our community, where do you really see this all going? I mean, we know Microsoft is not going to run their own conference like the Oracles and the SAPs of the world that do, but where do you really see this growing, and how do you see it evolving to get more people to attend? Because prior to COVID, people loved to attend these conferences. Here, sometimes I don't want to say we have to beg sometimes, but I mean that's maybe the only word I can think of out of my mouth right now. But how do we really grow this? How do we grow this to the point where people are attending the conferences and we're scaling up? People are going to our, either our road shows and our chapter meetings. How do you see really, reeling in? Sorry, getting hooking our users in and getting those people to attend. The partners will always be there. We are there, because we are the experts per se, and there are users that are experts now. But what do you see? How do we play with this in the future so that the three of us can help our community and help you grow what we need to grow?
Yeah. So thanks. Want to first off separate fact from fiction, right? On some of these types of things. Like I said, I've been with Dynamic Communities since Q4 of 2020. So right smack in the middle of the pandemic and those sorts of things. In 2019, this company had gone through some transitions and transformations, and about 6 months before that, the company was sold by Andy Hafer, who was the founder of the company, to a private equity firm, and all those sorts of things. So there's been stuff that's changed before I got here, stuff that I came into in the middle of that was like, golly, pandemic, what the heck do we do here, and all that. But the 2024 Community Summit North America that we did in there in San Antonio, for all of the data that I have on everything Community Summit North America that goes back to like 2013, for everything that I have seen, that was actually the largest number of literal users that were ever at a Community Summit North America. So there were people who talked about gajillion bajillion people at this one, and 2019 was the biggest one, and golly, when we were in Phoenix, it was the biggest one. So as the CEO of the company, for the data that I have, literally the number of users that were users and buyers, I should say, that were at Community Summit North America 2024, I've never seen more than that at any event.
Well, it was
From
Texas.
DC. Yeah, there you go, Kim. Tell them. And
Just
this
saying.
is the. So that's kind of a fact and fiction thing, right? Because I think there might have been some folks who got maybe a little liberal on how many people they were saying attended these events in the past, right? I'm a data dork, right? I'm a technology and data nerd, right? So I go to the data and say, hey, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at that. So that's kind of one fact versus fiction thing. And again, that's just speaking from the data. I wasn't there in 2019 or 2018. So you folks were. The second thing is you said bigger of the events that are out there with Community Summit North America. Let's be frank, right? Community Summit North America is the largest Microsoft Business Applications user conference on the planet, right? So there is nothing bigger than what Community Summit is. So we can talk about things and try to put nice words around them and all those sorts of things. That's just what it is, right? It's the largest Microsoft Business Applications user conference on the planet. Somebody called it in the universe the other day. I said, golly, if we're doing stuff on the moon, I think it would be neat to do, right? But that's what we have with Community Summit North America. Now this year, we're looking at between 5,500 and 6,000 folks that are going to be a part of the event, right? Would I love to see it be more than that? Absolutely, right? Now, will it? I don't know at this point, right? We're in July. So I know that I am personally creating a ton of the, whatever you want to call it, copy, right? For messaging that goes out and those sorts of things with our marketing team and our sales folks and the content teams and all those sorts of things, because I'm spending 20 to 30% of my time through our account-based marketing group, a woman called Joanne Talia and a few others that are doing all of the one-on-one discussions with user companies to help them optimize their experience at the event. So I'm actually hearing what people want to come in and do when they're at the event, as opposed to just trying to wax poetic from the clouds of what's going on. I'm actually talking to people. Like just yesterday, I got asked to join a call with somebody who's going through a major data transformation at their organization from a former BI platform to a brand new cloud-based data platform with Fabric, leveraging Power BI on top of it, and then creating a new integration across their Dynamics and modern work systems inside the organization. So I'm actually I'm talking to this organization through Joanne and the team on how to optimize their program from academy classes that we have at Summit North America to product roadmap sessions that are going on at the event, to product roadmap sessions at the event, to literal sessions that are aligned through the entire education program, right? So that's literally what people are kind of coming in and trying to figure out. So what we're doing is really trying to optimize a schedule, optimize a program for them to be at the event. So that's what I see, right? Is people are wanting to come into this environment so they can say, boy, I'm in the midst of this project. How can I make this thing real? I am considering this investment. Should I make that investment? I am trying to optimize this environment. Okay, there's a new release coming out in October. Okay, how does the new release actually enable me to optimize my existing environment and get more investment from the dough that I've already dumped into my cloud-based ERP system, right? Or my CRM system or my low-code, no-code environments. So that's the stuff that we're seeing. If I take all of that and put a backdrop on it, Steve, to your question, I actually think what in this world of AI, what we are actually going to start to experience is a face-to-face renaissance, right?
Yeah.
So the one thing that AI cannot do is replicate all of us together in Orlando or San Antonio or Charlotte or Memphis or wherever we are for an event, right? So I actually think we're going to see a renaissance in the value of being together in person, and a renaissance in what people's expectations are when they're together in person. Because I think we're going to start to see a much more balanced environment of bringing, levels of intelligence into fun environments and fun environments into intelligence environments. And we're gonna be, this year, and it was at the behest of some people who yelled at me for doing it, but this year we're actually sanctioning about 17% of the show floor at Community Summit North America just for experiences
For the
that we are
puppies.
creating.
The puppies.
Puppy was one of them. The puppy lounge we started last year, that was one of the tests, right? Was the puppy lounge. It's cute as heck, by the way, right? Um, but this year you're going to see even more built into this, right? There
Awesome.
is there's a golf simulator where
Of
you can be like
course.
you're playing Pebble Beach, right? And those kind of things. So that one's been there before. But one of the biggest things that's going to happen on the show floor this year, there's actually going to be a pickleball court. There is going to be a pickleball court on the show floor, a 30 by 40 environment, so literally the size of a pickleball court. And we're going to have pickleball competitions on the show floor. Imagine talking about BC integrations and migrations to the cloud with somebody while you're
Play
having fun.
pickleball.
You know it, right? We are doing a 1980s arcade on the show floor, with Centipede,
Oh,
Donkey Kong, right? All the fun games from the
Pac-Man and
yeah,
everything.
all those
Woo.
fun games that we had from the 80s. Imagine going into your Community Summit North America arcade and doing a challenge for bragging rights on who gets a top score in Centipede, while at the same time talking about how you are starting to think about agentic architectures to manage your manufacturing processes for your business. Another one, have you guys done axe throwing yet? Like the axe throwing?
I haven't. My daughter has.
That is
Oh
become
yeah.
one of the most popular things out there, right? So this year there is an axe
Oh
throwing booth
no.
on the show floor, um, and
Yeah.
imagine going in and talking about, now I'll go outside of the BC world for a minute and I'll talk about the F&O world for a minute, right? So what did we call F&O? Well, now we call it finance and supply
It used to
chain.
be
Then we called it
AX.
F&O. It used to be AX, right? Axe, right? So imagine an axe throwing environment on the show floor. If you want to go from AX to finance and supply chain, come to the axe throwing booth, right? We're going to throw an axe and move us into finance and supply chain. But these are the types of things, gang, that I think represent the face-to-face renaissance that we're going to start to see, is aligning intelligence with fun and fun with intelligence, because this is the beauty of celebrating human, right? We have the ability to let AI do some of these things for us. Maybe it optimizes our schedule for Community Summit North America. But when we're there, we get to be humans, right? We get to go around the show floor and engage with everybody. Go to the tech medic desk and get real answers to big questions. Go to the pickleball court and have a fun competition with people who are like-minded people in our community, to where you can have a little bit of fun and solve big problems.
Absolutely.
So, John, with all of what you're going to do for the on-site people, have you considered, and would this impact us, if you sold a virtual, like people signed up to be able to view recordings of specific events?
We've already got that, Rob. So we have got that ability for all of our education. Do you mean being able to sign in?
Sign up for a session.
Yeah. So I will not do a live broadcast of our physical events when we're in the room. But we will. What we do, record about 30% of the sessions based on what are most popular from attendees and where they're registering. Those sessions go into the recording list. All of those sessions get recorded, go through post-production editing, and then they are available to anybody who is a member at dynamicscommunities.com. And that membership is free, right, to be a part of dynamicscommunities.com. So after about 3 months after the event floors, all of those videos are available, chronicled, and organized And also, the content from those video recordings from the sessions are built into the Dynamics Community's UG Expert, our agent that's on the site. So you can actually get answers from the videos that run at Community Summit North America as that content gets built into the agent.
I did not know that was available. So it's available from last year's conference right now?
From the last 3 years, Rob. We have all videos available on the dynamicscommunities.com site, and they are 100% free as long as you register on dynamicscommunities.com. And I know that you are already registered there because you're a UG expert, sir.
Yes. I just didn't know that you were able to, I thought you had to be a member or an attendee, a paid attendee to see those videos. So that's good to know.
Yep, that is how it is at the very beginning of when they're live, right? After as we go, into month 2, month 3, those sorts of things of all of this being live, just available for everybody who's a member on the website. This is how we can try to help increase the ability for the community to thrive in this environment. But I will say, right, having been somebody who was doing digital media stuff for global businesses and stuff before I did this job, and I've run events since 2010, right? But I've run much larger media platforms before that. Hello, telepsychic. The thing that you cannot replicate is being in that room while somebody is actually walking through how to do something, the tips, the tricks, the tutorials, all that sort of thing. You can't replicate that environment, right? That's part of the, in my mind, face-to-face renaissance is you can't get that from an AI tool. You can't get that from, just watching a video. You do get that when you sit in a session that's run by Steve, that's run by Rob, that's run by Kim, or one of the other, 500 speakers that are a part of Community Summit North America.
Well, also, doesn't DCI ask us to do a repeat somewhere online for a follow-up? Some of the more popular ones, aren't we recording some of those or providing a session, a web session after Summit?
When and if it makes sense, absolutely, right? The beauty is if we can capture the session that's done at Community Summit North America, and then you can do sort of a brief on everything that you're going to learn in that session to then help somebody decide if they want to spend the time to watch it or not spend the time to watch it. That I think is pretty powerful. But yes, absolutely. Where and when that makes sense to do sessions as follow-ons, big time, Rob.
All right, so we are at the top of our hour, and we do have to. I want to be cognizant of your time, John, and everybody else's time, of course. But the BC3 Amigos, we truly appreciate your time and spending time with us this last hour. We've had a great time. We hope to see you, obviously, in October at Summit North America. Everybody who is going to Summit North America, or if you need to register, don't forget to look at the slides after this recording and get a discount code from the BC3 Amigos to come to Summit North America with a discount code. So if you haven't registered yet, please join us all there. We've got tons of BC sessions. And again, John, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and talk about different subjects that are in our community as well as in our world today. Other than that, anything more you want to say before we go?
2 things. Number 1, thank you, Steve, Rob, and Kim, the BC3 Amigos, for everything that you do within the community, all of the amazing effort, time, energy, intelligence, ideas that go into fueling Community Summit North America and everything else that we do with the road shows and so much more. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do on that side. And number 2, thank you for the work that you continue to do with Microsoft as MVPs to help make sure that the things that we need to see happening within the context of Business Central are happening. I know your fingerprints are all over that feedback loop and helping with some of the design development and execution of what comes out in the releases. So thank you very much for all of that.
John, it's been great. I've really enjoyed hearing about it.
Yeah, thanks, John. It was good.
All right, everybody. We'll see you guys next month on another BC3 Amigos, and see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.